Welcome back. It's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. Today from McFarlane Toys, we are featuring Spawn the Violator. Alright, so this is a monster of an action figure, no pun intended. It's gigantic. It's one of the largest deluxe boxed mega figures produced by McFarlane Toys, and it's so large it barely fits underneath my camera. It's a beast, and it's so incredibly detailed, and it weighs a ton. This thing feels like a solid brick, and I know I say this all the time. I am really excited to check this one out. On the back, or on the side of the box, we have a beautiful illustration, which I'm assuming is Todd McFarlane, his rendition of the Violator. And on the back, gorgeous action figure photography work with said monster. And this thing is, I can't stress it enough, it's huge. It's heavy, it's huge, it feels like a small child. And we're gonna open it up and take a look at it. Alright, just give me a moment while I try to break the seal. So today is February 4th, 2025. This figure came out some time ago, either last year or the year before. And I passed up on the figure initially because at the time I didn't feel like I needed it. I mean, I knew it was an awesome figure, but it was just more recently that I kind of got back into collecting Spawn action figures. More so the older figures from the 90s and early 2000s. I was looking to get some figures that I had either back in the day or figures I missed out on. And then during that time period, I got the itch to start buying some of the more modern Spawn figures. And Violator is one of the, iconic foundational characters of the Spawn universe. And I'm like, if I have Spawn, I really do need the Violator. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger. And here we are, going to take a look at this hefty, chonky boy. And let's get him out of the box. I apologize in advance. This is a very large figure, and it's hard to position underneath my camera. Alright, we almost got it. Alright, there we go. Okay, so there's a lot of ties I need to cut off. Alright, give me a moment. I'm going to do this off camera because I don't want you to sit through this ordeal. Alright, I'm back. I managed to take him out of the box. There were a lot of plastic ties holding him down to the tray. And it took like a good 5 minutes to remove all the ties. And this figure, I can't stress it enough. It's so heavy. And not only that, but it's also very sharp. It's like very uncomfortable to handle. Like, no matter where I hold it, there's always some sort of weird spike like this poking me, and it's very sharp. Everything here, he's literally the Violator. Every time I hold him, he's like he's causing me pain. It's ridiculous. He comes with this tiny little display base. We get this all the time with all the McFarlane figures, and it's so impractical because this thing makes sense for like a 7-inch figure, but I doubt it would support the weight and size of this. And this guy, like I said, I can't stress it enough. Heavy. I'm like putting in a lot of muscle work just holding him here on my camera. Gorgeous figure. Incredibly detailed. I don't think I've been this flabbergasted or speechless over an action figure since that crazy Swamp Thing mega figure we got a few years ago. This thing rivals anything that's on the market in terms of detail. And in terms of the size, this guy fully extended stands in at about, what are we looking at? Probably 11 inches. So yeah, just a beast. Let's look at him up close. Yeah, gorgeous amount of detail. Just look at the eyes. His eye lenses kind of has like almost like a hive-like pattern, or honeycomb-like pattern. His horns are so incredibly detailed. Just look at the amount of texture. There's all sorts of little tiny craters and cracks. Likewise, his skin it's almost kind of like it has like the scale of kind of like an alligator or a crocodile, but with all the little tiny like spikes and bone extruding from the flesh. It just looks really, really wicked and wild. Gorgeous amount of shading and ink work involved to really bring out the details. The ink wash really highlights all the recesses, and it looks like there might be some dry brushing effect also. Yeah, this thing is wild. Very heavy. I know I said that like a million times, but yeah. I kind of wish the jaw was articulated, but that isn't the case. The original figure from 1994 had an articulated jaw, but this one does not. Love the paint application on the inside of the mouth. Very, very grotesque. Yeah, this thing is a beast. In terms of the articulation, his head is just pretty much stationary. It's kind of embedded into his chest. The horns, likewise, they're not articulated. They're a softer, rubbery plastic, even though they don't look that way. But yeah, they're not going to snap or break. The arms are articulated, very stiff. This almost kind of reminds me in some ways of the Rancor from Star Wars Return of the Jedi. And the arms, do they bend? There is a joint. I think it's hard to see, but I think the joint's right there. The arms do swivel, and then they do bend. This one is very tight. What about the other one? Yeah, the arms do bend at the elbows. Very stiff. You might have to heat it up just to loosen it up. The wrists here are articulated as well. They swivel, and again, they do move. Very easy as opposed to the elbows. This is a very smooth moving joint. How about the other hand? Yeah, the hands articulate very well. The elbows, on the other hand, they're just very tight and stiff, but they do move. Ow. Okay, yeah, there you go. One of the spikes just friggin' bit me in the finger. All right, so there is an ab crunch, I think, and it kind of moves a little bit. It's ridiculous because the weight of the top is so heavy that even if you could pose it, this is always going to fall back down. The legs are articulated at the hips. Again, very tight. There you go. You got it moving. The knees are articulated. I think they swivel, and I think they bend inward because he's kind of like chicken-legged. And then there's an articulation above the. There's at 2 points of articulation, one at the ankle and one at the lower shin. I'm going to recommend that if you display this standing up, you might have to get one of those doll stands with the metal brace in the back and that ring that wraps around the waist, because there's no way this little tiny thing is going to hold this guy up. For a size comparison, here he is next to his arch nemesis, Spawn. This is the Mortal Kombat Malefic Spawn. I like this one a lot because it's a very unconventional, untraditional looking Spawn character. And you can see the size difference. This guy just friggin' towers over him. He's like 10. This guy's like 10 times his weight. Here's a McFarlane Batman from the DC multiverse line. Again, huge figure. So yeah, I can't recommend this enough. Even if you're not a fan of the Spawn comic book, or if you don't even know who the Violator is, this is just worth buying if you need like some sort of monster for either, like your Masters of the Universe, for your Conan action figures, your Marvel Legends, whatever. This is an incredible of work of art. Yeah, so the Violator is cool. And real quick, let's jump into the time machine and travel back to 1994 as we look at this. This is the original Spawn Violator action figure. I was a senior in high school when this came out, and this toy line took the action figure world by storm. We had the first wave of Spawn McFarlane action figures from way back in the day. This Violator did feature an articulated jaw. If you moved the horn on the back of his head, his jaw would open and close. And I kind of wish the new one had that feature, but unfortunately it does not. And here are some of the other figures back in 1994. The original Spawn, Tremor, Medieval Spawn, Clown, Violator, Overkill. McFarlane made some cool playsets and vehicles as well back in the day. And this figure, it looked awesome, but it was essentially just one giant bendy. You know, it had the wire frame in the body and in the limbs, and the plastic was kind of like a rubbery material, so it was very bendable and flexible. You know, the only point of articulation was just the jaw, but otherwise it was just a large bendy figure. The one thing I do like about this design is that this is the classic Violator. You know, he's much lankier, very creepy, almost like Slender Man-like. Whereas this one is kind of like the Violator meets the Hulk. You know, this is more of like a behemoth and tank. Whereas this one is much more on the horror and creepy side. But this one is fantastic. It's a beautiful work of art, and if you buy this, you're not going to be disappointed. Again, it's very heavy, so I'd suggest that if you displayed this on your shelf, you know, make sure that it has something to support the weight. Either prop it towards the back, or like I said, get a doll stand, because if this thing tips over, it's taking down everything around it. But yeah, awesome figure. And it's kind of cool to see how much McFarlane Toys has evolved since its inception back in 1994. You know, to go from this to this, it's just amazing. And if you were like me, and if you were along for the ride during that entire time, it's really cool to see the evolution, not only of the character, but of the toy company itself. Alright, so with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.